Good evening, everybody. So the question that I picked was, why should President Trump be concerned, or should he be concerned about the investigation in the Southern District of New York? Mr. Conan is quoted as saying, "Mr. Trump did not directly tell me to lie to Congress. He spoke in codes, and I understood that code." Now, Mr. Conan, as we all know, is currently appearing in front of Congress, testifying against our president, Mr. Trump, and saying that Trump has committed fraud, that he's committed racketeering and other crimes, but that he's not at liberty to further divulge into those crimes because he is in constant contact with the Southern District of New York. Which on my part, there are some doubts that Mr. Conan is really on the up and up, because he is a known liar. He was convicted of lying, and in May is going to prison for lying. Back in 1970, there was an organization created called RICO for short, which stands for Racketeering, Influence, and Corruption Organization. Why was that created? That was created to go after organized crime, the mafia, and embezzlement, racketeering, that sort of thing. Two of the examples through the research that I found that they use to compare Mr. Conan and our president is John Dean, who turned on President Nixon back in 1973, and I believe his name is pronounced John Volacera, who turned on the Cosa Nostra back in 1963. They say that Mr. Conan is closer to the latter one, but I'm not very familiar with those. Those were before my time. Rudy Giuliani, who is now currently the main attorney for President Trump, actually spearheaded RICO in the 80s and 90s and is known for setting the gold standard for organized crime of how to prosecute it and how to go after it. And the Southern District holds that's where it mainly is done. So I find it very interesting that Rudy Giuliani is now the main attorney for President Trump. And if there are some validity to these corruption allegations and fraud allegations and stuff, I wonder how that's all going to play, because he knows the ins and outs of it. Mr. Conan has not really given out set examples. He's led breadcrumbs for Congress, but every time they've tried to get him to divulge more, he says he can't, because he's been instructed by the Southern District of New York not to divulge any of that. So again, I kind of wonder how much of this is truth and how much of this is really Mr. Conan lying to try to get his own sentence reduced. Another thing I noticed through my research, the New York Times was talking about how they feel that the investigation being done by the Southern District is to bring down the people that are around President Trump, to bring down the Trump organization and to go at the family. And because none of them are immune from this while our president is current president. Or, Governor Christie says, it is also a way to build a case to go after our president once he leaves office. And if there's some truth to that, I can see that happening. But if Congress continues to go after the president in this investigation of Russia and the fraud and the racketeering dealing with Russia, which is all that they are limited in investigating, Governor Christie has been stated that this will impede the investigation for the Southern District, because most of the members will get subpoenaed, will exercise their Fifth Amendment right, which, as we all know, the Fifth Amendment right says that nobody shall be a witness to themselves in a criminal investigation. It is all of our Fifth Amendment rights. Well, by doing so, that stops the investigation. So it's going to, and another thing that I found out that was very interesting too, is that two of the main people that have been subpoenaed by Congress are Alan Gertken, who is the CEO of Trump Organization, and Alan Weissenberg, who is a long-term accountant of President Trump, who is rumored to have a very limited immunity, but neither one of them are willing to testify in Congress, and neither one of them are willing to work with the Southern District. So it could go one of both ways. Either A, they know that there's corruption and they are trying to limit the exposure, or they don't want their words being used against them with Mr. Conan. So I do agree, after doing this research, that, like Governor Christie has stated, that this is more of a threat than Conan and Mueller, because really there isn't anything there that we know of at this point in time where Conan is a threat. Thank you. And here are my two little things. Thank you.